Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. We have discussions every day here at the Tenpenny Files on topics that are vital and often controversial to discuss things that will reveal what's hidden and will open and challenge your mind. We hope that these conversations will make you think, spark debate, and hopefully inspire you to action. Join me here each day at 3 p.m. Eastern to hear from authors and documentary filmmakers who have something important to say that have often been silenced or censored. Today's conversation is with my guest and one of my very dearest friends, the one and only Dr. Bryan Ardis, to talk about his book, Moving Beyond the COVID Lies, Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity, which exposes the U.S. government's hidden agendas and provides readers with natural remedies for over 200 COVID and long-haul COVID symptoms. Dr. Bryan Ardis, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It is incredible as always to spend time with you, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny and the Tenpenny Files. So excited to be here. Audiences, I hope you're doing great, and I hope that you have an incredible holiday season.
Why did you feel it was so important to write this? I remember when you kept saying, I need to write a book. I've never written a book before. And you went and hauled up in a cabin, I think it was in Montana, to write this book. Why did you feel so compelled to write Moving Beyond COVID-19 Lies?
Yeah, I really found excuse after excuse not to want to write this book, not start this book, but I kept feeling the impression I was to write a book. But Sherri, I'll tell you, the last thing I wanted to do in any grade of school growing up was to ever write an essay, write any article. I didn't want to do it. I was not going to be a poli sci major because I heard they had to write a lot of reports and a lot of essays, a lot of papers, and I didn't want to do any part of writing. Writing is not my favorite thing. I do like researching, learning, and teaching and presenting, but writing is not what I absolutely love to do. So this was a big ask. So Dr. Vicky Wool, which I think you know out of Idaho, she's an MD, and she invited me to go up to she's like, look, you need to really put this stuff in writing. I'll give you my home in Idaho up in the woods in the cabin. I'll let you go use that if you'd like to. Just get away. You don't even have Wi-Fi connection. Just go up there and hang out and just write. So my wife and I went up there for a whole week, and I was able to actually write from 10 a.m. in the morning till midnight, 5 days in a row. And I've never sat down and did that ever. I sat in front of the fireplace, the real wood fireplace, and I just sat there and was writing. And I was actually able to complete 5 entire chapters in 5 days, which I'd never done. And then it took about another 6 months to finish the other 10. When I came home, I would just put on headphones and get into Enya music and Solfeggio music, and I would just sit there and listen while I wrote, and just lock myself into a room in the house. But this book has been a shocking project, uh, just to get it to completion and to watch how people have responded to the book. It's been very exciting. So from the time we launched it in August of 2024, it has been an Amazon bestseller in multiple categories, including medical textbooks, which I found interesting. It's been a number one for months medical textbook on Amazon. It's been a number one selling in the vaccine category, even to this day of this recording, ever since. The number one best-selling book in vaccines category. And it's now been translated in Spanish. You can order a Spanish version. It is also in French now. You can order it in French. It is coming out in Polish. It's already been translated into Polish. And there will be many languages to come. There's also an Audible version I recorded in January of this year. And it was the number one selling Audible book for like 6 months on Amazon. So it's been a really awesome response to watch so much hope and thrilling response to people wanting to have the information. So for me, it was a very daunting task. It's a very, I think, very complete book, picture beginning to end of most of the issues related to COVID-19, the pandemic, and what you need to be warned about for each of the future viral pandemics that have been named. This is going to be a rinse and repeat, I believe, project that they called COVID-19. And I believe they're going to do it with repeated viral named pandemics in the future.
What was the hardest chapter for you to write?
By far, the hardest chapter was chapter two. So that was the last book I wrote, or actually the last chapter I wrote, and it took it took months to complete that one chapter. And that is the chapter that summarizes the events of my father-in-law's murder in a hospital due to an ill-advised hospital protocol for a misdiagnosed, he never had it, but we were told he did, and he was told to his face he tested positive for it, respiratory infection called the flu in February of 2020. And I walk the reader through or the listener through every single day from the moment he admitted himself into the hospital and his wife had encouraged him to go because of his fever and a headache, to his misdiagnosis that day, which was the reason for his admittance to the hospital that day, and over the next 11 days till he took his last breath in front of the family. So that was the most difficult because I wanted to do right by my family, Sherri, that their memories, their recall, their journaling, their own text messages to each other as family members of concern for him. I wanted to make sure that as I outlined what the hospital and the protocols had been doing in each moment of those 11 days or 12 days, I wanted to make sure I wasn't inaccurate in any of their memories as I tried to do right by the family in presenting what had happened to him.
In your book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, you did, and I've heard you speak many times at many conferences where we've crossed paths. You were the world whistleblower on remdesivir that you frequently call Run, Death is Near. What is the most upsetting to you about the fact that this drug is still on the market and still being used?
Yeah, I think it's pretty disgusting that remdesivir, before it was announced in May of 2020, in the first real month of COVID-19 being declared in the United States, in that month, Dr. Anthony Fauci had said to our president and to the nation that there is a new antiviral drug that is the promised savior and the only antiviral drug to be used in hospitals for COVID-19 positive patients. And then he said this: we're not exporting that drug from the United States until the end of 2020, by the way. Only Americans are going to get this drug. Now, my problem with this drug was that at the time was never FDA approved. It had never been found safe and effective. In fact, the only two studies he quoted of why it was the one selected for this pandemic to be used in all hospitalized Americans, the two research studies, I quote, remdesivir killed 53% of all people in the Ebola trial, which was more people that died from the drug than they died from Ebola. So Ebola has a 50% mortality rate. Remdesivir had a 53% death rate in the clinical trials in Africa in 2019. The Independent Safety Board, Sherri, pulled the drug from the trial, announced to the funders in August of 2019, this drug is too deadly, too toxic. It is not to be used in this clinical trial in Africa anymore. It is too deadly. Guess who was the funder of that research study with remdesivir with Ebola patients in Africa? Who would have been notified in August of 2019 that the drug was too deadly, too toxic, and had a higher death rate than Ebola did? Dr. Anthony Fauci's department at the NIH is the one that funded that research study. So the Independent Safety Board would have been emailing Dr. Anthony Fauci telling him, we are suspending remdesivir out of this human clinical trial. And do you know what it was being compared to, Sherri, in that trial? There was only 3 other drugs it was being compared to in that clinical trial, and all 3 of them were monoclonal antibodies. Do you remember what happened to monoclonal antibodies with the FDA during COVID? The FDA ended up banning monoclonal antibodies as a treatment for COVID-19 acutely, and then banned it from every state in the United States, banned it from every territory and jurisdiction the United States owns. They could not use it anymore in favor of remdesivir. And every monoclonal antibody in the trials of Ebola outperformed and was more efficacious and safer than remdesivir. So that's my problem. Then came COVID-19, the pandemic, and the mandated hospital protocols. Every hospital in the nation, Sherri Tenpenny, is told there is only one drug only that you can give to all COVID-19 positive tested patients in America. And what was that antiviral drug? Only one. You're only allowed to use one, and it's called remdesivir, this non-FDA approved drug in May of 2020. This is the only drug you can use. And if you dare, Simone Gold or any other medical doctor, use any other prescription medication for your COVID positive patients, we're going to threaten you with your license, your rights in these hospitals, and we are going to take it from you. Okay, that's what happened. Remdesivir was the only antiviral drug all hospitals in the nation were allowed to use during COVID-19. And if you didn't give it to your patients, your license, your rights to work in a hospital were to be taken from you. You know what's more disgusting about that, I share in the book the most disgusting aspect of remdesivir. I coined "run, death is near." When you hear the word, since May of 2020, Medicare has had a published bribe sent to every hospital that if you will just give Medicare aged patients in America remdesivir for 10 days, we will give you an additional 20% add-on bonus to the whole hospital bill. Sherri Tenpenny, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, who has been the director of emergency rooms and departments, I need to ask you, does it make sense to you that when the government of the United States says you only have one antiviral drug you can use for COVID-19 positive patients legally, you're only allowed to use one drug and one drug only called remdesivir. You can only use that one, medical doctors, on your sick Americans with COVID. Does it make sense to you that Medicare would offer a 20% add-on bribe to use the one and only drug they're allowed to use anyway? They're only allowed to use one. Why would Medicare continue to add a 20% add-on bribe bonus dollar amount if you just give it to everybody older than 60 that are Medicare age? Does it make sense to you?
No. And is that still in place, Bryan?
It's still in place to this day.
To this day, that policy is still in place.
Yep. And that was the most upsetting thing. Every senator, state rep that I stood in front of state capitol building representatives during COVID testifying on behalf of you all state citizens, the one thing that bothered them the most was when I would show them Medicare's bribe to hospitals for 20% add-on bonus to the whole hospital stay if you just give these elderly remdesivir for 10 days. Wait. They're only allowed to use that one drug. Why are you sending them a bonus on the whole hospital stay? And I would actually look at all the state reps and all the elected officials who would then look at me and go like this, Dr. Ardis, can you explain to me why Medicare is doing this? And I'd go like this, no, I need you to explain to me why Medicare would do this. Not a joke, Sherri. Every single one of them in front of Peter McCullough and I and Steve Kirsch and Thomas Rance, every time the state rep would look at me and go like this, it feels like a murder for hire plot. Yes, it does. Murder for profit is exactly what it sounds like. In fact, this is what I would say. I'm in my 40s. I'm not really that old, but I've been an adult for over 20 years. And you know, for 20 years, I've heard on the radio, I've heard the narrative that there's so many baby boomers going to become Medicare and Social Security age that they're going to bankrupt those systems. You know how to take care of bankrupting a system if there's too many people to draw from it? Why don't you just cull the herd? That's what this looks like to me. Let's just cull the herd, incentivize hospitals to bribe the hospital to murder your loved ones that are Medicare age specifically. That's the only people that were bribed were those that were Medicare aged, and it was a Medicare bribe. To this day, you can find it.
If it's still in place, have you gotten to Dr. Oz about this for stopping it?
Dr. Oz and nobody on that in administration has ever talked to me.
Wow. That's really important because, you know, they're finding all this fraud and abuse everywhere in the Medicare system. Seems to be one that should be at the top of the list.
Amen. I agree.
Wow.
So to this day, remember the name of the drug is Velcary. That is the brand name, Veklury. And then its generic name everybody knows is Run Death is Near. Remdesivir. Veklury, remdesivir is the same drug. Say no.
You know, you offer some really, really great guidance in your book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. Do not unquestioningly trust scientific journals. Do not blindly trust government health officials. Do not unquestioningly trust the mainstream media and medical doctors. Do your own research. Now, 6 years into all of the COVID lies, and your book is Moving Beyond the COVID Lies, are there anything else that you would add to that list?
Anything else I would add to that? Yes, just know if you think COVID still doesn't impact you, I just want you to know our government published last year that there are 20 million Americans suffering with what they call long COVID. So if you had a mild case of COVID, if you have any symptoms or diagnoses, Dr. Tenpenny, your audiences, those of you listening, if any of you have gotten sick, have symptoms that are lingering, been given a new diagnosis since 2020, So think about your symptoms, your disease, your new medical diagnosis, your new Facebook support groups you've joined. If you were never in a rheumatoid arthritis support group until after 2020, if you weren't in a schizophrenia support group, diabetes support group on Facebook, if this has all been since 2020, the book Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies is for you. I wrote it for you because they just published. There's 200 now named long COVID symptoms and 200 named and diagnosable medical conditions now called long COVID. And what you all don't know out there is they have a document I show you in chapter 14 in my book. I show you the title of the document, where to go get it. It's called The Long-Term Health Effects of COVID, written by our NIH. So you should go read it, because in there you should be shocked to now learn that schizophrenia is now a diagnosable long COVID condition. Parkinson's is a long COVID diagnosable condition. Alzheimer's is a long COVID diagnosable condition. Diabetes is a long COVID diagnosable condition. Aphasia is a long COVID diagnosable condition. Dental, periodontal diseases are now a long COVID diagnosable condition. You don't know there's 200 symptoms and medical diagnoses that are now called long COVID. And what you don't know is that if you just got rid of what was causing your COVID symptoms to begin with, and what the government knows is inside your body, they published the long COVID symptoms, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. This document says you will have your symptoms, Americans, they said, for an average of 10 years from now in 2024. Okay, I need to tell all of you, how do they know you're going to have your symptoms for up to 10 years? Because they know what's inside of you. And they know the human body can't break it down for 12.7 years on average. So when they say to you, we know you're going to have your symptoms if you have these symptoms, since 2020, if you have lingering symptoms since 2020, they know you're going to have these symptoms for at least 10 years. Why? Because the average is 12.7 years from the time this substance is introduced into a human. What is the substance? It's what you call spike proteins. You all think you have spike proteins in your body, that the body's just, they're novel, new, you've never seen them and your body doesn't know what to do with them. No, the government and medical science has known for 100 years that when this substance gets injected into your body, introduced into the human body has no way of breaking it down on its own, and it takes 10 to 14 years to do that, giving you an average of 12.7 years of suffering. Well, I wrote the book because in chapter 15, I tell you all the natural antidotes to everything that is causing your long COVID symptoms that medicine has known for 100 years doesn't leave the human body for an average of 12.7 years. This is why the government said you're going to have your symptoms for another 10 years from 2024. Why? 4 years earlier was 2020. When did COVID start in America? 2020. What's the longest time period it takes for the human body to dissolve these, what they call spike proteins? They know it takes 14 years, 10 to 14 years. The average person will suffer for 12.7. This is where they got the 10-year number from in 2024. You do not need to suffer needlessly. There's antidotes to every one of the things they call spike proteins leading to your long COVID, new diagnosable problems.
You know, Bryan, we're going to get into the things about nicotine and about snake venom here in just a few minutes, because you've written a lot about and spoken a lot about shocking sorts of things that you discover because you are the consummate researcher. What are some of the most alarming things that you uncovered and write about in your book?
The most alarming thing that I think is most important for everybody to understand, I literally have people walk up to me all the time, even at my own conference. They'll walk up to me, scientists, doctors, they'll walk up to me and go, Dr. Ardis, you know nicotine is not the cure-all for all diseases. I mean, they'll say it to me like angrily, and I'll go like this. Can you show me where I said that? You know, nicotine's not the silver bullet for everything, Dr. Ardis. And I'll go, wait, can you tell me where I said that? Because I don't remember ever saying ever out loud that if you want to cure the whole world of everything, you just need nicotine. I've never said that. For some reason, you think I did. I never said that. All right. So number one, I think the most shocking thing is the reveal in chapter 13 of my book. showing the whole world why nicotine and tobacco products were the perfect antidote for most people on the planet Earth from ever getting COVID-19 as an infection and ever testing positive. To this day, smokers of tobacco products are still the least to be hospitalized for COVID, the least to test positive for COVID-19 with a PCR test, the least to have any symptoms during COVID-19, and the least represented to die from COVID-19, which all of you out there, this should be shocking. This was called a respiratory disease. Who do you think on the planet should have the worst respiratory health on earth? It should be the tobacco smokers. Why would those people be the ones who appeared immune, published in mainstream media news outlets all over the world in scientific journals? Why were tobacco users the only ones that appeared immune to COVID for the whole 4 years? That's because of nicotine. And it wasn't something new that I told you recently. This was actually published in January of 2020 and April of 2020, which I find shocking that scientists already knew the antidote, but our government continued to lie to you. To this day, they continue to lie to you. And they tell you no better time than quitting smoking now, people, if you want to avoid getting COVID during the flu season now. No, it isn't true. No, tobacco users were always the most prevented from getting COVID. And then page 104 and 105 in my book, Sherri, I think is the most shocking revelation in the whole book. Pages 104 and 105. And on those two pages, when you open the book, both pages you can look at, open, 104 and 105, is just one chart. And I took it out of a researcher from Italy's research study that was published in October of 2021. And the researcher's name is Dr. Carlo Brogna and his team. They took blood, urine, and feces samples from a whole bunch of COVID-19 positive patients and those who tested negative for COVID. And they sent their urine, feces, and their blood to two labs in Germany and one in Italy, or the opposite. So 3 different DNA labs that included Germany and Italy labs, and all 3 of them confirmed the same findings, Sherri, which should be very shocking to all of you. In only the COVID-19 PCR tested positive patients, not in any of those who tested negative. In their blood, urine, and feces, he tested all of them. Those who tested positive for COVID, those who didn't. When they ran all the blood work, only those that tested positive for COVID had a combined, from 3 different DNA labs, had a combined 36 different animal venoms in their blood, urine, and feces, only in the COVID positive patients. None in any of the COVID-19 negative control group. And he summarized it. There were 0 venom proteins in any of the negative COVID group, but in every blood, urine, and feces sample sent to 3 different labs in 2 different countries was confirmed 36 different animal venoms, which includes 20 different snake venoms, a starfish's venom, not ironically or coincidentally called Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, lover of Jesus.
Wow.
The name of the starfish and its venom found in every COVID-19 positive patient in every country, Dr. Tenpenny. The starfish's venom, the starfish that's on the ocean floor, was in the blood, urine, and feces of every COVID positive patient on land. The name of the starfish, not ironic, is known to science, published on the chart, the crown of thorns starfish.
Wow.
And then in every COVID-19 patient was 15 different cone snail venoms, which are snails in the ocean, on the ocean floor. They're deadly venom. 15 different animal venoms were found in every COVID-19 positive patient. And you can see the DNA results on pages 104, 105. There's a protein column where I identified what venom protein. And on the far right of that chart is the animal that venom comes from by name. And they show you it comes from this crate snake, from this king cobra, from this Chinese water moccasin, from this Uruguay coral snake. I'm not joking. A Uruguay coral snake from Uruguay in South America was found in every COVID-19 positive patient. I would like to know how all these snakes' venoms were confirmed by DNA analysis. Now, Sherri Tenpenny, I've listened to Dr. Lee Merritt. Maybe DNA is a fraud. She's like, they've never isolated the DNA double helix. Maybe that's true. But we have all been programmed to trust DNA evidence, to put criminals away, to identify who your mom or dad is, to do ancestral lineages in your family tree. I mean, they're all using DNA to do that, supposedly. You've all been conditioned to trust DNA. And I'd like to know why so many medical professionals around the world are ignoring the DNA of COVID analysis. Blood, urine, and feces. The venom's in the body. The human body cannot degrade venom even after antivenom treatment. If you get stung by a scorpion, spider, bit by a snake, medical science knows the venom stays in the human's body for 10 to 14 years. The human body doesn't break down venom. You can save their life with antivenom, but the venom they publish in every research study around the world, the venom will stay circulating in the body of the human for 10 to 14 years, wreaking havoc on all their symptoms, on all their systems, creating every symptom they call long COVID right now. And I can back it up, every single one of them in the book. You have an absolute cause for your suffering called long COVID. If you have blood clotting disorders, you have dementia, if you have hallucinations and delusions, they're now calling schizophrenia, you have venom proteins in your body that they're now going to diagnose you with a medical condition and get you hooked on drugs for the rest of your life needlessly. The answers are in the damn book, Moving Beyond COVID-19 Lies. All the research antidotes to those venom proteins to help your body break them down faster is in the book. I couldn't have made this easier for you. I show you the research studies, the dosage, how it works, how fast it works. So if you've got issues since 2020, you need to be looking at the venom aspect of COVID. Don't ignore it. I know it is scary. Lots of people are okay, feeling safe to talk about the nicotine topic. Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, I find it amazing. I'll watch clips of Gary Brecka and other people talking about nicotine and its amazing benefits. Tucker Carlson talking about me with Alex Clark about nicotine and my claims and him talking about how great it is. But no one wants to talk about why nicotine works. Every research study about COVID and nicotine is only because nicotine is addressing snake venoms.
Well, hold that thought there, Bryan. Hold that thought there, Dr. Ardis, because that is a very compelling place to break, because we're going to come back and talk about nicotine and spike protein, which you said really isn't the problem. It's really about these venoms. So we're going to talk about nicotine patches and snake venom right after we take this quick break. And hold that thought, because we're going to hear a quick break from our sponsors on AmericaOutloud.news. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays the Tenpenny Files on the iHeartRadio network daily at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also listen anywhere in the world on the America Out Loud News Media Player. And if you missed any of these great conversations that we've been having every day for the last period of time now, you can find the Tenpenny Files on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart Virtual Studios, and on my platform, which is drtenpenny.com. and drtenpenny.substack.com, where they are there, that you can listen to them at your convenience. Because there's so many great books and documentaries and so little time to read and watch. I started this show to maximize your time and to jumpstart your interest into areas that you may not even considered before, or topics that you've always wanted to investigate but really didn't have the time to do it. So we have created a show to shorten up your learning time and to expand your horizons. We've got a great message coming from our sponsors. Sit tight. We'll be right back with more with Dr. Bryan Ardis. Zeolite is a detox spray. We work specifically with a company called Touchstone Essentials. They are an incredible company. We've been working with them now for several years. And zeolite is a mineral that goes through your body like a one-way basket. It will clean out heavy metals such as arsenic and mercury, aluminum, cadmium, and it hooks onto those metals from a one-way perspective. So once it's bound, it goes out through your urine or your stools and doesn't get redeposited in other places. Everybody needs to have a detox product in their life, and this one is so easy to use and it's so safe. You can take it when you're pregnant, you can take it when you're nursing, you can give it to little children, you can even give it to infants, and quite frankly, I give it to my dog. I actually put a little bit of the zeolite in his water because until we all stop living in a toxic world, we all need to get some of those extra toxicities out. The heavy metals, the persistent organic pollutants, the things that are floating through the air, the different things that we come in touch with in our environment. And we are a big fan of zeolite from Touchstone Essentials. We've been a big fan of their products for several years. Go to drtenpenny.com/detox to get your first bottle of zeolite spray for $50 off.
Well, only when the government bows to the people will America become great again. This is Malcolm Out Loud here. Join me in pushing back against censorship, my fellow Americans. Right at the top of AmericaOutloud.news are the words, many voices, one freedom, united in the First Amendment. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news, liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Today, our conversation was Dr. Bryan Ardis about his book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. And if you don't know Dr. Bryan Ardis, which I can barely imagine anybody in the world who doesn't, let me tell you a little bit more about him. He's a licensed chiropractor, acupuncturist, and nutritionist, and considered one of the most influential doctors in alternative medicine across the country and around the world. Dr. Ardis has been on the forefront of the Reawaken America tour as a headline speaker, and he's also been featured at medical conferences and symposiums around the world. Dr. Bryan is the host of the Dr. Bryan Ardis Show, the podcast. It's actually the Dr. Ardis podcast is the name of the podcast, where he warns, educates, and inspires people to demand better health and healthcare. He's the co-founder of the Healing for the Ages Conference, which brings together researchers and top natural medicine doctors who prioritize natural remedies over corporate profit. And he's one of my very dearest friends. So I'm so happy to have him here today. You know, Bryan, you've created quite a buzz on social media and otherwise, in all sorts of interesting circles like CIA and government officials on the health benefits of nicotine. And you even wrote an entire chapter in your book called Just in the Nicotine of Time. Tell us, we started talking about it in the first half of the show, but expand a little bit on why nicotine is so crucial for us to know about right now.
Yeah, very good. All right. So great question. And thanks for the intro. Man, you make it sound like I've accomplished a lot here in the last 6 years. I'm just following your footsteps there, young lady. So just trying to do my best here. But the chapter Just in the Nicotine of Time, like I mentioned earlier, that in this broadcast, I was shocked. One of the most shocking things I think for most people is to realize and learn that science had already confirmed that it appeared an anomaly, a paradox is what they called it. There appears to be this paradox where smokers who should have unhealthy lungs appear to be the most immune to COVID-19 infection, which is true even to this day. But what I find shocking, and for all of you to understand, is this. I was shocked to discover that in April of 2020, researchers in Paris, France, because of a research study published in China in January of 2020, these researchers in France, looking at that paper of the researchers in China 4 months earlier, they decided to do their own research study. And this is what they did. They tell you that they requested and ordered spike proteins of COVID, Sherri, in April of 20. Put yourself back in April of 2020. We're hearing about something called COVID. We're hearing there's an epicenter in New York City for the United States of America, an outbreak there, maybe of this crazy new novel respiratory disease. But we don't know a lot about it. But at the same time, in Paris, France, some researchers are ordering online spike proteins of this novel virus, and they said they got them in the mail from China and the UK. Spike proteins of COVID came in the mail, FedExed from China and the UK. Is that weird to you? That's weird to me. All right, everybody, that's weird to me. April of 2020, they get boxes from FedEx of spike proteins in a vial of COVID-19 from China and England. And they decide to do DNA analysis on it. And they want to know, what is this most identical to? These little two spike proteins, they called it. Well, they published that they are identical to just two things. Actually, they say three things. These spike proteins of COVID are identical to three things. King cobra venom, called cobra toxin. And I show you their infographic where they did the DNA analysis. And then they said it's identical to something called bungaro toxin, which is a venom protein from another snake in China, less known, called the Chinese crate snake, Krait. That's the Chinese crate. Then they said it's also identical to parts of the rabies virus. And this is important. The rabies virus has a spike protein on it called RGP, rabies glycoprotein. This is very important, everybody. Why would rabies show up to be identical? The spike protein identical to that. Did you know the rabies glycoprotein, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, is identical to crate snake venom called bungarotoxin? And it's published in research studies for 40 years. Rabies has a protein on it identical to Chinese crate snake venom, which is identical to one of the two spike proteins they had ordered from China and the UK that were supposedly on the outside of the COVID-19 virus. Okay, so this is why it all looks the same. Rabies has crate snake venom on it. The two spike proteins of COVID were identified to be king cobra venom, crate snake venom, or identical to the crate snake venom called bungarotoxin on the rabies virus. That's all they published. And then they said this, now that we know what it's identical to, if you go research what's the mechanism of injury in a human of these two venom spike proteins, they called them spike proteins, these venom proteins from these two snakes, guess what those venom proteins cause when those snakes bite their prey? The first symptom is respiratory arrest and hypoxia. Sherri, what was the first symptoms of COVID? Everybody was told to run to CVS and Walgreens and get a pulse oximeter and watch your oxygen levels drop. That's called hypoxia. Guess what these snake venom proteins do in your prey? They paralyze the diaphragm nerves that draw in air, creating respiratory arrest and difficulty to draw in oxygen. So you start to suffer to breathe fully, which is what every COVID patient had. Then, Sherri, in this paper, April 2020, like in Lord of the Rings, the movies and in the book, they say there's one ring that rules them all. I've said this over and over. There's only one research study that rules them all related to COVID-19, and it's this one. Because they wrote in April of 2020, Sherri, over 5 years ago, they wrote this. We now know why smokers are immune to COVID-19 and tobacco users. Because these venom proteins, when you go into snake venom research, they have published in medical research, these venom proteins do not target ACE2 receptors. That is not what's happening to COVID-19 patients. They target alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, abbreviated alpha-7 NACHR, which you and I talk about as neurotransmitters post-stroke. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. These nicotine receptors are what allow acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, to transmit nerve signals to the brain. And when the venom binds to alpha-7 nicotine receptors in your tongue, Sherri, you don't get a signal to your brain of taste, which is why you all lost your taste and smell. Guess what happens when you block the nicotine receptors from allowing acetylcholine to tell you what things smell like in the brain? You lose your ability to smell. Guess what happens when it binds to the nicotine receptors in your spinal cord that tell your diaphragm to contract to draw in air? You become hypoxic. That's what was happening to people. And you know what was shocking in this research study that I say rules them all? Listen to me, healthcare providers. People are still talking about the ACE2 receptors. DNA analysis in April of 2020, these researchers show you in the research study, there are no ACE2 receptors on the surface of lung cells in humans. They don't exist. So, Sherri, why does this community of researchers and scientists and medical professionals continue to talk about the ACE2 receptors in the lungs? They don't exist on the surface of your lungs. But guess what does? Nicotine receptors. And the nicotine receptors with COVID, it was actually crossing the blood-brain barrier and then causing you to become hypoxic. And these venom proteins bind to nicotine receptors. And this is not just hearsay. May of 2023, I show you in my book, the NIH published a document titled, "The Exogenous Spike Protein Targets Alpha-7 Nicotine Receptors." What I'd been saying for 2 years. And they write in the summary, the spike proteins of COVID are identical to these three things, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny and audiences. The spike proteins of COVID are identical to three things. Rabies spike protein, which I already told you is identical to bungarotoxin called crate snake venom. It's also identical to HIV's spike protein, which is called GP120, glycoprotein 120. Glyco means sugar protein. And then it says, and it's identical to snake venom neurotoxins. That's the NIH's document. It is identical to HIV spike protein, rabies spike protein, and snake venom neurotoxins. When this got published in May of 2023, you should have seen how many attorneys, scientists, medical professionals were telling everybody Dr. Ardis is owed an apology. The government just admitted it. Oh, then I said, no, this document does not support what I said. It does tell you the truth about the venom aspect of the spike protein. However, what they aren't telling you is why it's identical to HIV spike protein and rabies. And I show you in my book, I show you in chapter 13. Medical research has confirmed for 40 years that rabies has snake venom on it called crate snake venom, called bungarotoxin. That's what makes rabies so deadly. HIV, which we were told, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, comes from monkeys in Africa. The GP120 spike protein of HIV, look it up, all of you. Medical science says it's identical to snake venom from the crate snake called bungarotoxin. So now crate snake venom is on HIV, crate snake venom is on rabies virus, and it's on the COVID-19 bat virus. Okay, I have to ask you all this. Did a monkey have sex with a snake to get snake proteins on its HIV virus? Is that what happened? Did a bat have sex with a snake to get infected with a respiratory virus that included snake venom to cause what they called COVID-19? You have to use common sense and rationale, people.
You know, Bryan, you've spent a lot of time, from at the beginning of COVID, and you broke this information about venoms and about the venoms being, that, and you got a lot of blowback and a lot of people that said there's no way that that could possibly be. But yet what you've actually exposed is a $1 trillion industry about venoms used in all types of healthcare products like cosmetics and face creams and on and on and on. Talk about that a little bit, about how you kind of unintentionally stumbled into this fact about these venoms and pulled back the curtain on an industry that the government didn't want us to know anything about.
Yeah, this is a big deal. When I uncovered this, I was actually very scared to actually bring it to light. I'd actually researched this for 5 months. I walked people through my experience in the book, and it's actually titled in a chapter titled in my book, "My Burning Bush Was a Fortune Cookie." And you remember Moses and the burning bush, right? And so the burning bush was talking to him. Mine was a fortune cookie, actually. So I walked people through the story about why I was so scared to bring this to light. I had discovered that I was not the first that realized that COVID-19 was snake venom symptoms. And that's what was killing people in hospitals. I had no idea that someone had already figured that out. I started down that rabbit hole in December of 2021. What I didn't know was in May of 2020, a researcher at the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania published a white paper being paid by the NIH to research why people in hospitals in New York were dying in tractor trailer load volumes. So the University of Pittsburgh was paid by the NIH to study the blood of all those that died in hospitals in New York. Did you know this, Dr. Tenpenny? And Dr. Bing Liu, Bingliu, is the head researcher in this department at the University of Pittsburgh. They get the blood samples of all those that died in New York City. They run the blood work and they produce a white paper and send it throughout the department. That what is different between what is called mild COVID and severe is only one thing. Those who had COVID that they called mild cases and survived in their blood compared to those who died and had more severe cases of COVID was only one thing, Sherri. And Bing Liu was paid by the NIH, our government, to research what killed people with COVID in hospitals in New York, and then publish that and go tell the world in a press conference. So Bing Liu produced the white paper and sent it throughout his paper, their findings of their study, in May of 2020. The next day is announced the national press conference to go out on CNN, Fox News, ABC, and CBS. Sherri, Bing Liu did not show up to the press conference. Instead, police were sent to his home and they found 5 bullets in his chest and 3 in his brain, in his recliner in his living room. Do you know what was on the white paper? He was murdered the morning before the press conference, where he was going to tell the world what was in everybody's body that died from COVID. He said the only difference between mild cases of COVID and severe is those that die from COVID-19 in their blood are toxic, deadly levels of snake venom proteins. And that guy ended up murdered in his home before the press conference. And this is why
they call it a
I was
suicide?
very hesitant to bring this to light.
Did they call it a suicide?
They called it a lover's quarrel.
Mm.
They found a friend of his a mile down the road in a car, ironically, by himself with a pistol in his hand and one bullet to his head. And they said it was murder suicide and that they were quarreling over a girl. No. Bing Lu was married, happily married, and this guy, they took them out, and this is a very common trait of those who try to hide truths from the rest of you. This is a very intelligence operation, repeated narrative. This is what they did. They skewed it as a lover's triangle. The wife even came out and said there was none of these issues. The family said Bing Lu was completely not, anyway, he was completely trustworthy and a great Chinese American student. And
how does the snake venoms interplay with these turbo cancers?
Very good question. So I actually dive into this in my book also. What explains the turbo cancers? In 1950, okay, just so everybody knows here. We're going to rewind this. Do you know, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, what is inside COVID-19 mRNA vaccines? It is not mRNA. Do you know what is in the COVID-19 vaccines they call mRNA vaccines? It's called DNA plasmids. So the NIH has on their documents, I show it in the book, it's right now on their website right now. When we manufactured the mRNA vaccines, there's no mRNA in it. It's only DNA plasmids. Do you know who invented DNA plasmids? No, his name was Dr. Stanley Cohen, Cohen. Do you know that Dr. Stanley Cohen, that invented the DNA plasmids that's in the COVID-19 vaccines, received a Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1986? And do you know what he received a Nobel Prize in Medicine for in 1986?
No.
Okay, so the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are causing turbo cancers. The guy who invented the DNA plasmids that are in these mRNA vaccines, his name is Dr. Stanley Cohen. He received a Nobel Prize in Medicine only once in 1986, and it was because he published a research study in 1956 and again in 1961, and that's what he got the Nobel Prize in Medicine for. Okay, so Dr. Stanley Cohen does a research study in 1956, 1961, and he gets the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1986, and he invents DNA plasmids along the way that ends up in your COVID-19 vaccines. Oh, and he mysteriously dies in 2020. Okay, not mysteriously, he was old, he died, but he just died coincidentally in 2020. What was he studying in 1956? He only did 2 research studies in 1956 and 1961, and who funded it? The National Cancer Institute, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. The National Cancer Institute gave Dr. Stanley Cohen money in 1956 and 1961 to research one thing and one thing only. Does snake venom in mammal tissue, including humans, cause turbo cancers to form?
Wow.
The answer is yes. And when the snake venom, was exposed to brain tissue in a mammal, he coined the phrase that a side effect of snake venom is nerve growth factor. He called it that, NGF. When you put snake venom on the skin of a mammal or inject it into the body, on the skin of your organs, you'll develop tumors that he termed epidermal growth factor. Now, all oncologists out there, you know these two phrases, NGF, EGF. Did you know these phrases are descriptions of the side effects of snake venom's actions on your body's tissues of your patients? And that's where those phrases come from. Dr. Stanley Cohen confirmed that glioblastomas could be grown in the brain of a mammal within 72 hours in 1961.
Wow.
He called it nerve growth factor. Epidermal growth factor, he figured out you could grow skin tumors on the skin, on any skin tissue of organs, and he called it epidermal growth factor. because the National Cancer Institute asked him to see if snake venom would cause more rapid forming tumors to form in the human body. Can you believe that? And then in 1986, he was given the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Then the government of the United States asked him to develop a genetic therapy called DNA plasmids that would make bacteria and yeast produce snake venom or any venom in a mammal to create disease. And I give you COVID-19 mRNA vaccines that have his DNA plasmid technology put in them. And I show you those research studies in the book. The turbo cancers are because snake venom has been proven, and people have been given Nobel Prizes in medicine for the same industry that are telling you these things don't cause cancer. No, you asked these guys and paid them to see if it would actually produce turbo cancers in 56 and 61. Then you gave them the Nobel Prize in medicine for it.
Well, Bryan, you've got a wealth of information, and so much of it is in your book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. We've got about 3 minutes left in our show. What is the take-home message you want to leave people with about your book and about all the work that you've done over the last 6 or 7 years to expose things about the venoms, about the nicotine patches, the importance of that? Tell people what you want them to remember from this conversation as a takeaway.
Yeah, I just want you to just know everything that you accept as reality is only what's being presented to you. And for so many, Sherri, you and I, you've been at this a lot longer than I, and I'm just going to speak on the vaccine narrative. How many people are you going to warn and tell that there's issues with any vaccines, childhood vaccines, adult vaccines, and how many people don't want to go take the time to look at the information? Like, just go look. You can look at the package inserts and see what's in there. For example, Sherri, has anybody ever told you that any vaccine for children, adults, it doesn't matter? Has anyone ever told you there's no proof or evidence that vaccines can cause cancer in children or adults? And have you ever, how many people defend vaccines and say vaccines do not cause cancer? They don't cause leukemia in children. They don't cause cancers. How would you know? How would anybody claim that they know vaccines don't cause cancer? On every package insert of every vaccine ever manufactured, it actually states, we have never researched our vaccines for cancer toxicity or impact. So if the pharmaceutical companies have never seen or tested to see if their products produce cancer, how do you as a layperson or medical professional, how do you know they don't do that? They've never even looked. This is just an example. You need to go do your own research. So this is my message for all of you.
Make it short.
I have compacted all the research for you into a book. If you have any symptoms since 2020 that have not resolved from any pharmaceutical prescription, from any therapy you've tried, please get the book. If you know somebody, the subtitle of the book is very specific, Sherri. Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. You do not need to suffer for the next 10 years or any period of time longer than you need to. It is unnecessary. There are real antidotes at real therapeutic doses that are outlined for you in the book for you to try. And my hope is you and your health will be restored back to as good as it was or better since 2020. That is my promise to you.
And with that, Dr. Bryan Ardis, your book that can be found on Amazon and other places where books are sold, even in multiple languages now, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. It's been so great to have you here with us today. And for all the rest of you, thank you for joining our show every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can see us here tomorrow or the next time on AmericaOutloud.news and iHeartRadio. You can also find me at drtenpenny.com and drtenpenny.substack.com. You can find me on X and Instagram at busy Dr. T. So have a great day, the rest of your day, everybody. Goodbye and God bless.